Fusebox.
Okay, this is Fusebox, number 164, Hoodwinker's Ball. And you might have that wool pulled just a bit too tight over your eyes.
Yeah, I mean, you could cut the circulation off and, who knows what would happen. Yeah. Hello, friends. Welcome in to this, the 164th edition of Fusebox, joyously entitled Hoodwinker's Ball. And I am your building a solar-powered laser ray from discarded tuna fish cans and soiled toilet bowl brushes host, Mark Rose. And over there, always ready to storm the steps of the neighborhood liquor store, the Archbishop of Amplitude, Milt Keynes, everybody.
Did you get a little something extra in your morning coffee today?
Well, you know what? It was a lot greener than usual.
Yeah, well, thank you kindly. And, what the hell, man? The kooks just keep on kooking.
Yes, they do. And that, in part, is where we are going on this episode, friends. Right down Pinwheel Eye Lane and just across the street from Crazy Town Road. We've got some world-class derangement going on in here.
You know, I get it, too. Giving oxygen to these walking fruit and nut bars is kind of like fanning the flames, but...
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I mean, it is what's going on, right? I mean, we talked about this before, the idea that in the beginning of this program, back in 2015, we had a decidedly more surreal approach to this show, which quickly changed around 2016 when that orange guy took office and we could really no longer, with good conscience, look the other way and yuck it up.
Well, I think we still...
Yucked it up, yeah, we did. And we'll continue to do so as we endeavor to get back to that place. But the second we start to turn that corner...
They drag us back in.
Yeah. I mean, well, let's not belabor the subject any longer, friends. We're wanting to discuss...
Rant?
Maybe. We're wanting to chat a bit about our newest addition to the cuckoo top 40 list of insaniacs, the one, and sadly not the only, Marjorie Taylor Greene, representative from Georgia.
North Georgia.
Yeah, like how far north?
Pluto.
Well, that does explain her compact size. Well, this gal has a long history of conspiracy lovement, which, as I've mentioned on previous programs, isn't really on itself a reason to discount folks. It is their belief, so, whatever. Unless it asks for stuff like this.
If we have a sea of people, if we shut down the streets, if we shut down everything, if we flood the Capitol building, flood all the government buildings, go inside. These are public buildings. We own them. We own these buildings. Do you understand that? We own the buildings and we pay all the people that work in the buildings.
Yeah, that was Ms. Greene in 2019.
Holy carp.
Yeah. But her infatuation with these alternate facts have been very well documented by her.
Kennedy getting killed in the plane crash. That's another one of those Clinton murders, right?
Now, this is what gets me about a lot of these nutbags. They post this shit all over their Insta-tweet ass-book pages, and then when somebody actually sees this stuff for what it is, many times, evidence, then they scramble. like she's doing right now, to remove it all.
Yeah, good luck with that too, right? Because as we know, just because you remove your copy, everybody else who retweeted and reposted your drivel may be more than happy to share with the authorities or whoever, right? Well, this stuff is just like what the name implies. Viral. And we know what the viri is doing on this planet at the moment.
Yeah, they don't have a vaccine for stupidity yet.
Yeah. Some might argue, Mr. Keynes, that many may prefer you stay stupid, but that's a pangolin of a completely different color. Ms. Greene was also a fan of solving the mystery of the California forest fires. Yeah, by stating that it was actually caused by a solar-powered space laser that was funded by the Rothschilds.
I thought they made wine.
Yeah, I've heard that. For sure, the anti-Semitic stuff is big in the Quirkanon movement there.
Yeah, well, despite the fact that PG&E took the fall for starting that fire in the first place.
Well, now, don't confuse this with the facts, Mr. Keynes. That just doesn't serve the cause at all here.
She had it in for kids, too, it would seem. She was one of those idiots who said that the Parkland and Sandy Hook school shootings were all fake.
Yeah.
Even stalked one of the survivors trying to get a comment out of them.
And then add irony to this insanity. She was then appointed to the Education Commission. Because, that's a perfect place for somebody that believes that kids weren't shot at all at that Sandy Hook thing, and there was nothing more than a crisis drama in place played out by actors.
So she gets booted out of the 2 commission seats she was in by a majority vote. Of course, she tried a very lame walk back of some of the things she said. No apologies, though.
Yeah, indeed. And that is, by the way, a precedent-setting move. Having the other party call for your removal.
Well, those toe-headed Republicans couldn't sack up and do the right thing, so I guess the other side of the aisle just had to step in.
Well, like I said, this sets a precedent now. If the GOP take control of either House or Senate in the years to come, they might be tempted to revisit this action on the Democrats.
Yeah, but don't you have to have something like this, like inciting a riot and calling for the murder of people before you can do that kind of thing? I mean, there's a huge difference between being controversial and inciting a fucking riot.
Well, yeah, one would hope they would know the difference. Wouldn't surprise me at all if they just become angry brats and attempt a thing like this anytime they don't agree with a policy.
Well, if Republicans want to align themselves with this kind of batshit in a can crazy, then go for it. You'll be sending a message, all right. You're a party of lunatics.
Well, Mr. Keynes, that is how this is shaping up at the moment. There are a few in there.
Maybe 5?
Yeah, maybe 5. 6, maybe 7, perhaps. Who knows? Who really are quite desperate to bring the GOP back to a center ground of...
Good old-fashioned fascist.
Yeah, for some, no doubt. But a select few seem to have a clue and know that this is not the direction they want to go as a party.
Yeah, I'd say the party is over, bro.
Well, it certainly is thinning out.
The band stopped playing months ago.
Yeah, they weren't sounding that good at the end there either,
Isn't it beautiful?
TheFuseboxShow.com.
Well, if you have followed this program for a while, you'll know of my interest, perhaps obsession, with preserving net neutrality, that being an open and free internet, not interfered with by cable companies or other quasi-regulatory interests. This domain is currently overseen in this country by the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission. Same folks that govern the radio and television and all that stuff. So, I am just thrilled to announce that another in the gallery of goons that Orange Guy appointed is finally evaporating down the drain of despots as well. That's right. The former head of the Federal Communications Commission, Ajit Pai, or as he is known, or formerly known around here, Rancid Pai. This character was formerly a Verizon lawyer. Right. That's who you want controlling the course of the internet and broadcast, a telephone company lawyer. Why not just hand the management of the chicken coop over to this nice wolf here?
Yeah, it was getting pretty dark there a couple years back. He started to chip away at the regulations guarding against more cable company mystery charges and fake fast lanes and all that shit.
Yes, and friends, if you're not clear on all that, the takeaway is that we were just getting way too dangerously close to a scenario where cable companies could create, quote, premium tiers of service for users wanting, well, basically what they already were regulated to receive. But now, this enhanced service provides, quote, speedier connections.
Well, what it really meant is that they changed their logo color from blue to green on the invoice.
Yes.
No, seriously, man, this would have been some horrible shit. It would have given the cable companies free rein to charge more for the same bad service you're already enjoying.
But wait, there's less. They wanted to create what they termed a gamer's lane, right? A service they said would provide an enhanced experience for online gamers.
Why not just make your service better?
Yeah. Why not just make 10 louder?
This goes to 11.
Precisely. So good news for us all. Rancid Pai is done, and hopefully he too, haha, yes, friends, he too, will face the stark fist of removal.
You must stop that right now. You must stop it.
I'm not sure who's slated to go in there. A lot of my radio station buddies are glad as hell, too.
Yeah, no picnic for terrestrial radio station owners and operators over the past 4 years. You know, they already have a huge nut to crack trying to stay afloat in these web-based times.
Well, you know, the smart ones went online the second they saw the writing on the wall and did, online stations.
And yeah, and that was a very skillful move on their parts. We're just not going to return to the terrestrial radio scenario in the same way. That we know. So, friends, in a blatant attempt to return to some kind of abnormal for us here on the show, I have a little quasi, sort of, almost kind of film review for you.
And now, Spotlight on Film.
Well, I've been wanting to talk about this thing for a while, but in view of things going on around us, it just seemed a wee bit out of sync. But let's give it a whirl, shall we? When I was about 9 or 10 years old...
Should I get my blankie?
Well, you may get as comfortable as you'd like, Mr. Keynes, but leave the pants on, okay?
Shit.
Yeah. Some may recall those early childhood days when you're sitting at the TV looking for something to watch. It's probably an early Saturday morning. And all the really cool cartoons from the golden age of the 1930s have already played. And you're hoping for something else that you can see. Yes, I say see because you could always find something to watch in the channel seams. You know, the ones that weren't in your broadcast area, like White 9. Oh, yes, the TV guide listed channels in black rectangular boxes if they were in your viewing area. But it always seemed that the stuff you wanted to see was in the white rectangular boxes, and therefore out of your area.
Yeah, it was frustrating back then, bro.
Yeah. Because what? You had 3, maybe 4 regular channels and then some UHF channels that didn't come in very well at all. But now and again, you'd hit pay dirt. And for me, this was one such occasion. I'm channel surfing there, and then I see this image of a giant fish that seems to be swallowing a boatload of little people. It looks like a kind of etching, but it's animated. And the people in the boat are really live action. There's clearly something odd going on with the water they're in, and the color of the scene is tinted. And holy carp, what the hell is this? Well, I was sadly at the near end of this film when I first stumbled upon it, and because this was the typical kind of TV print, there were no credits at the end to tell me what or who this thing was. It actually wouldn't be until many years later that I finally discovered that it was one of the handful of films made by Czech filmmaker Karl Zeman. And this one was The Fabulous Baron Munchausen. Zeman made use of various techniques in his films. He used animation, cutouts, forced perspective shots, tinting, and sometimes all of the aforementioned in the same shot. His work has influenced both Czech filmmaker Jan Svankmajer and probably more commonly known Terry Gilliam, who said in a recent documentary about the work of Zeman, he did what I'm still trying to do, which is to try to combine live action with animation. His Doré-esque backgrounds were wonderful. He also very clearly influenced Tim Burton, and he too is on this documentary extolling the virtues. And it's really easy to see why. You really could not do a film like this anymore, because the practical effects nature of it, meaning the hands-on construction of sets and animation sequences, it would be cost prohibitive for most filmmakers. Plus, many would say, oh, hell, we can do that in the box these days. Well, not really. You'd lose a sense of spirit in that process that comes about from the handcraftedness of things. It might be interesting, but it would be definitely different. Zeman's films were done at a time in Czechoslovakia when he had the luxury, for a while anyway, of producing these films as almost a labor of love, and fortunately had many folks who believed in his meticulous vision as well. Zeman's Munchausen is not based on any known manuscript. Zeman wrote the script himself and fueled it with his love of the works of Jules Verne, to which he would make several short and a couple of feature films based on Verne's work. A few years before Munchausen, Zeman created Invention for Destruction based on a Verne story called Facing the Flag. Just to give you a feel for the film, the opening of the Munchausen film begins with footsteps leading to a pond. Then the camera gradually moves upwards to show the flight of butterflies, and then birds, and then a progression of historical aircraft, ending with a rocket ship that's traveling through space and eventually lands on the moon. And then we see the astronaut leave his spacecraft and come down the steps there, and then he sees a series of other footsteps already on the moon, which then lead him to an old phonograph, and then a crashed rocket with a plaque reading Jules Verne's From Earth to the Moon. Suddenly, a couple of strange characters greet him and lead him over to a dinner table where our surprise space traveler meets the characters from Verne's book, and among them, the one and only Baron Munchausen. So they invite him to sit at the table there, and the characters believe that the astronaut is a man actually from the moon, and they begin to treat him like a small child. From here, a wild adventure ensues with a return to Earth via balloon piloted by swans, and it's there that the actual adventure begins.
Now, is that where they meet the giant mantis aliens?
Not in this version. I'm sure in some alternate timeline, though. That's exactly what happens. This thing just creates such a sense of otherness. Most of that is through this rather ingenious use of production design and extremely clever staging. You really just have to see this to appreciate it. Believe me, my description is not going to do it for you. As I said, Terry Gilliam has been marked forever by Mr. Zeman's work, and it shows in his own material, both animated and live action. The edition I saw was from a group called Second Run, using the newly restored 4K scan from 2017, and it looks glorious and really shows off the detail in Zeman's work. I'd have to say that it actually was a little more magical seeing this the second time in its entirety. Childhood can sometimes imbue a memory with certain qualities that may only exist in the child mind, but seeing it a second time, it actually amplified it. I think it's also important to say that the effects work here should definitely not be compared to modern-day CGI or any of that. These films belong in their own space and time and on their own terms. For instance, there's a sequence where a live-action medium shot of actors on the bow of a ship is then, in the long shot, replaced by cut-out silhouettes. Now, that's not like a mistake or a bad effect. It's a stylistic choice. It's a statement. These films are loaded with that stuff, and it's just very pleasing.
So is this guy still around?
Carl left us in 1989 at the age of 78, but literally was working up to his last days. Now, as you might have expected, the market for his particular style of film were kind of becoming more and more unpopular, particularly during the mid-1970s, when greater realism was and really continues to be the rage.
More explosions.
Yes, and faster cars, and more furious, and more bald guys. Although I got to say, I think he'd be very much amused at the rekindled interest in this work. There have been numerous screenings of this film in particular, and several of his other short films, like something you have to see this to believe it. It's called Inspiration. It's a short film, which involves animating glass puppets.
Glass? Holy carp.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, you can't imagine. So, sincerely suggest checking out Mr. Zeman, and a link to the second run disc is in the show notes. And if you are one of the mighty minions of Prime Video customers out there, you can actually find a version there. Search for the fabulous Baron Munchausen 1961 and prepare to take a ride to Wonderville. Yes, and so with that, friends, we're going to grab our giant papier-mâché and fully articulated hatchet fish and head for the exits. But not before thanking Eric Newsom for splendid ID announcification. as well as remarkable stagerism from Jeff Pollard. Thanks as well to the incredibly lifelike master of the meters, Milt Keynes, for technical assistance and so forth and so on.
A pleasure as always, and stay clear of low-flying reptoids carrying solar-powered lasers, okay?
Always good advice, always. And thanks as well to you, friends, for once again pushing play on this edition of Fusebox. And please, if you have not already done so, kindly feel free to subscribe to this humble program wherever you may have found it, be it Apple Podcasts or Google or Amazon Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, or the very OnSug themselves at onsug.com. We do so appreciate that sincerely. I have been your surface-to-air, forest-fire creating bumbershoot host, Mark Rose, saying, until our next cartoon.
Fusebox.